Okay, I'm going to show you guys how I went about building my NRL Hunter slash PRS rig for the season. We started off with a Savage 110 barreled action that we got from the local gun store. Outlier barrel, spray painted it black. We don't really care about the scope or any of that. That's just off the shelf. What we did next was I don't have the money to be spending $1,000 on a MPA or a MDT chassis system or the like. I know there's other options like the MDT Oryx or the MDT Field Stock. Gotta be honest, they're a little ugly. The Magpul Hunter stock, I think it looks pretty good, and what I wanted to do was optimize it. I've seen some articles on Reddit about how people modified these stocks to be good for long range or made them a little more rigid, and I kind of took quite a few different approaches and got this thing to be extremely solid and very nice to handle. So I'll just run you through what I did. Is we bedded this entire thing on the lower half here with epoxy, and well, in conjunction with this aluminum block out here. Well, let me just take it apart and show you. It's so it's bedded in epoxy, and it also has bolts that run through the chassis. So you can see this Victor Tactical, the ones that make the 22 chassis, their Arca rail, somehow magically the bolt pattern lines up with this Magpul V-block, or whatever you want to call this receiver, this aluminum chunk. Somehow it all lines up. So you really just got to do a little bit of grinding to get it to fit a little, drill a couple holes out in the Magpul, and then you're pretty much off to the races after that. So I'll just show you and get this apart a little bit farther. This was I don't know, probably like a couple hours tops to screw it around. I have this Gray Ops bag stop on there, and then I also have this BCM CAG, I want to call it. I don't really remember, but I'm left-handed, so it goes on this side, but that's what I drive my hand into, and then I'll cup the bag and get the rifle really solid. I'll take that off. Oh, and then I'm short, so this, instead of moving this up to the next slot and then running a sling, some sort of sling thing, such as I use the pair clip here, I just ended up drilling 2 more holes to attach this so that I can clip my sling on easily. If I went to the next slot up, then it was out of reach and I couldn't get to it with my stubby little hands. So next we'll get this Arca rail semi-disconnected. It's actually bedded, well, not bedded, it's sunk into the epoxy, so it'll never like fully come out ever again, but Okay, there's 1, 2, so yeah, you can kind of start to see. So these 3 bolts, these back 2 went through the factory Victor holes on this Arca rail. Those holes were already there. I did not have to modify it. This 3rd one here, I just took my drill and I used a carbide which of course I don't have readily available to show you. Here it is. And I just used a carbide here to, it doesn't have any burrs on the end, so I just sat it in the Arca, this little T-slot that's already there, and just, I don't know, probably moved, like, dremeled it a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch more so that I could get this bolt in. And then these front 2, I just used the Magpul M-lock slots that were already there, and then I'll show you once we get them out what happened with that. So we'll just get, and then I switched these front 2. They were little machine screws up that were going into plastic. I switched them to wood screws so that they had a little more bite. And as you can see, I have, it looks like a beaver went at this thing. Well, this, of course, this Savage that I bought isn't a regular small shank Savage, it's a large shank, so the barrel is a lot thicker at the base than a normal one, so I had to do a lot, and I mean, it is a very thick barrel. So I had to do a lot of dremeling and sanding to get the channel to be able to fit this barrel, but that might not be needed in your application. Okay, so now that we got it kind of apart, just got these 2 other screws to take off. And after messing with this thing a little bit more, I kind of actually really, it's made me like it even more, because I got this off eBay, the left-handed model, for I want to say like 200 plus shipping, like pretty darn cheap. And then the epoxy I got from my dad. It was just sitting around. I used about 4 ounces of epoxy, so really not all that much in total. And then I think the only thing I really bought was these machine screws for these 3 to attach the Arca rail in the back section here. I didn't drill the hole. I kept the holes pretty darn tight through the plastic, so they're kind of thread through the plastic as well as into the nut of the Arca rail. So let's see if we can get this apart. Come on. You want to go? Oh, that's fine. We can just. trying to be gentle with it. I don't want to mess anything up because it really was kind of a lot of effort. If I just punch them out from that side. Alright, there we go. So yeah, this is what I was talking about, this aluminum bedded part. So what I did was just punch it out with the drill a little bit to fit these machine screws, which I got from Ace. These are the same pattern and thread pitch as almost all M-Lock standard screws, which I cannot remember the diameter and the thread pitch, but any Magpul M-Lock accessory that you have, just use those same screws. Just take one of them to the local Ace Hardware or True Value and get the longest screws you can. I got whatever these are called, panhead Allen keyed, so that they would match all the other hardware in there. And then, as you can see, this is the acrylic bedding or epoxy. So I just filled it up enough to not interfere with any of the screw mounting points. And you can see here, these front two are the ones where I switched them from the very fine thread machine screws to some wood screws. And I'll tell you what, now that this is all bedded, and with this Arca rail that firmly mounts into the aluminum action or V-block, whatever you want to call this piece, it is super solid. Like, you can throw this gun down on a bag very easily, have no worries about any flex in the fore end. Obviously mine's a thick barrel, so I had to do a lot of work to this to get the barrel to fit into this, but I mean, this is all just relatively, to me, free, because I have the tools. All I paid, I think, was $8 for 3 of these and the nylock nuts. I take that back. This Victor Arca rail was 70 or 80 on eBay. I think this would be your best bet, just because these 2 back holes are already there. You just gotta punch the plastic out and punch this out to fit your machine screws. And then do a little bit of a Dremel job with a carbide bit to get this slot to match that third one. And then obviously these front 2 are just regular M-locks. So what I did was just seal them up with tape from the inside before I threw the epoxy in. And you can see it kind of leaked out. So it's a little sloppy, but I mean, this Arca rail just sits, I mean, it's aligned pretty well because of the M-lock. And then with these 3, it worked out very well. So the reason I really wanted to take this apart was, like I said, is to get this paraclip for the sling back farther, because I've tried shooting positions with and without this, and this is definitely a huge the opposite of hindrance. I wouldn't say a game changer, but it's definitely an advantage. That's the word I'm looking for. Jesus Christ. It helps steer the gun when you're on a bag or a prop or something awkward. I've seen on the long range precision network, the guys that always shoot coyote stuff, I think he showed off on one of his builds that their chassis system has an option. I can't remember what it's called, but it like clipped into the QD slot, and it was like a gas pedal type thing like this, and that kind of gave me the idea. It's like, well, I have one of these just sitting on somewhere on the bench. That ought to work, and yep, sure enough, it worked. All right, so we'll just get this part mated up. So I think what I'm gonna do, because this pair clip is for M-LOK, obviously. I think I'll just grind the M-LOK slots flat and then just rely on my hardware to hold it very nice and tight to the handguard here. Although maybe that wasn't the best choice of placement. Well, we'll deal with that. I'm pretty resourceful, so. Anywho, that is essentially how I optimized my Magpul Hunter stock. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them, but I mean, I think this kind of explains it pretty well. Just get some epoxy, a Dremel, Arca rail. You could probably do this with any aluminum Arca rail if you're fairly decent with measuring and layout fluid and getting everything in its appropriate slots. So, anywho, that ought to do it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Folks, I'm here to tell you that the activities performed in today's videos were in fact not gunsmithing. I had nothing to do with the barreled action of the rifle, which is the serialized part number. All I did was modify a couple pieces of plastic. So, thank you for your attention on this matter. Goodbye.